Hi everyone, good morning. So good to see you for today's live conversation with one of our amazing guest experts. Today I have a wonderful guest for you, Michelle Kvello from Australia. And today we're talking about practical steps to building your career from a corporate to consulting. Now, I'm excited to introduce our special guest today because she is not only one of the speakers at the Women Thrive Summit, but also she is amazing at what she does. And today we'll be talking about transitioning your career from corporate to consulting. So, in this live, we're talking with Michelle, a coach and the founder of Lantern Partners, a virtual CFO firm. She's escaped her own corporate career over 10 years ago to start her own consulting business. And now she's helping other people to make that transition with confidence. So make sure you join our live today. Let us know in the comments if you're watching this live or watching this on replay, and we will be here to answer any of your questions. Michelle, good to see you today.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's lovely to join.
How are you? How's life in Australia?
I'm good. It's hot. If I'm looking at that's why. Can't complain.
Oh, wonderful to see you. So, Michelle, tell me a little bit more about your journey into what you do today.
Sure. So, as you said, 10 years ago, I stepped out of my corporate career into consulting, which is probably a very graceful way of describing what was a bit of a burnout and crash at the end of a corporate career that I'd probably long surpassed but didn't quite know how to leave. But fast forward 10 years and I now run a thriving virtual CFO advisory business. We're a team of 10. We're 80% female run. And we've got clients all over Australia and internationally as well. So really, really proud of what I built, and just really, really passionate about helping others do the same thing.
Yeah. What is a CFO firm, if you had to describe in a few words?
So CFO is Chief Financial Officer. And so essentially they lead the finance teams within traditional corporate environments. But what we do is we provide that service for founder CEOs of startups and scale-ups who aren't yet ready for a full-time CFO, but they need that commercial and strategic finance advice, because that's the kind of finance that I used to do inside corporate. So I don't do, and neither do any of my CFOs, do a very traditional, we're not tax accountants, and we're not transactional accountants. We do the forward-looking finance stuff. So the budgeting, the forecasting, the business casing, helping founders grow their business, particularly when they're really fast growth. And that's what I really, really love about finance, is really kind of translating that into growing the dreams of founders. So yeah,
that's what and it's so crucial for people to have that skill, especially, I don't know, a lot of women perhaps don't feel very confident in building their finance projections and things like that. And it's a thing that we leave last to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, most of the founders that we work with are solo founders. And so a lot of what we provide is that sounding board, that what do I do next? And I could do A or I could do B. What, you know, help me work through those decisions. So that's a lot of what we do.
Very, very exciting. So you went on to start your own consulting business, and obviously you've taken all the skills that you had within your corporate career to start your own. And now you help other people to make that transition. What would you say the beginning steps of making that transition? I'm sure it wasn't an easy kind of beginning. What was your journey like?
So I think for me, it took me far longer than it should have done to leave, because, well, I didn't have this kind of guidebook to how it was going to work. And I remember back sort of 10 plus years ago, the concept of virtual CFO advisory, and some countries call it fractional CFOs, some call it outsourced CFOs. It was a really new concept. And because I didn't do a very kind of, I think whenever anybody talks about finance or accountants, that your mind immediately goes to tax. I can't do people's tax returns. You wouldn't want me to do your tax return. So trying to figure out what value is it that I bring, and why would people outside of a corporate environment need my kind of financial advice? It took me a really long time to figure out how to package that up, how to talk about the value that I could bring, how to find my ideal client, all of those kind of things. I kind of was really just figuring out as I went along. And so it took me a lot longer than it should have done to leave. And I got to, I'm sure this is a conversation you have a lot as well with people that you're speaking to, really got to that point of burnout, because I stayed in a wrong situation for far longer than I should have done. So yeah, that's I think there's one thing I could have done quicker. It would have been to figure that piece out.
Yeah, and it's obviously hard when you make a transition. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of women who have been in a corporate, they build some amazing skills, and perhaps don't see a complete application in real life to start their own businesses. There's a lot of questions, there's a lot of uncertainty, and how do I even go about it? What would be some of your advice to women feeling like, I don't know, even if this skill is worth anything?
Yeah, exactly. And I was stuck on that point for ages. I'm not sure what I do has worth outside of a corporate environment. And so I think a lot of the time we get quite trapped into, when we're talking about starting our own business, whether that's consulting or anything else, a lot of the time we start with, what do you do? And what I talk to people that I coach and mentor along corporate to consultant is, the conversation you really need to be having is, what problems are you solving for your clients? They don't care about what you can do. What they care about is, we kind of say, what is it that's keeping you up at night? And that's the conversation we have to all of our founders. Before we tell them what we do, we ask, what's keeping you up at night? And start the conversation from there, because that really is where you're going to figure out where your value is outside of a corporate environment.
Yeah, it's like, I know in the networking, sometimes people say, well, I'm a consultant. And then you're like, okay, where do I go from there? Right? You just like, okay, but I don't know, what do you consult on? How do you help me solve problems? What pains do you help me resolve? And if someone to say, hey, I come into your business and I help you build a profitable business, right? Now, then you got my attention.
Yeah. Then you're like, okay, I get it.
Right? So it's like, okay, so how can you make my business profitable then, right? I have a follow-on question, but if you just tell me I'm a consultant, I'm like, okay, that's it.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, all of the way that we go out, whether you want to call it selling, but you're engaging, you're having a conversation, you're figuring out what makes someone else tick, what makes their business tick, what makes them tick within their business. And that's how you start solving problems for your clients, no matter what field you're in. And I think the other thing as well, and why I was so stuck on what is my value, is because, I mean, it makes 10 years sound like a million years ago, but over the last 10 years, the amount of people that, are starting businesses that maybe 20 years ago wouldn't have even dreamed of starting a business, that starting something for yourself is becoming more and more common. And so when you think about typical, we'll call them back office functions, like finance, like legal, like HR, kind of areas of the business that don't typically think of themselves as having, a product to sell. I just support the business. But when you've got so many new businesses starting up and so many entrepreneurs, a lot of those entrepreneurs, I think the typical age for starting a business now isn't, mid-20s, it's when you're in your mid-40s. Those people have worked in corporate environments before. They understand the value of having, HR business supporters, legal business supporters, finance support. And so they're all trying to patch this support together in their new business. And so there's so much value you can provide, because you know exactly the kind of problems that they'll be having in your sphere of expertise.
Yeah, and that's amazing. Just to have that mentor or guide or coach in your career transition, I think it's really, really important, because I see so many people trying to figure it out on their own for so long, and then either giving up on it or just not doing it right and making so many mistakes that in the end they feel kind of defeated. So I think that help. Where would you say, for someone wanting to make that career transition from, let's say, corporate into really using their skills to start their own business, where do they engage a mentor, at what stage, and how can mentor really help them, or a coach can help them in that transition?
Yeah. So typically I would say it's at the point where you're starting to explore what a freelance or a consulting or an advisory kind of business could mean for you. Engaging a coach or mentor at that stage, that you're trying to work out your value proposition, work through who your ideal client might be, who you can best serve before you've left corporate. I think that's a really ideal time to engage, because the reality is, for most of us, we can't just at a click of our fingers drop our corporate career overnight and then suddenly expect to, replace that income overnight, right? It's a gradual process. And so engaging that help before you leave corporate, so that you give yourself the absolute best chance for success at the quickest trajectory you can do it, is I think is ideal. But I also do work with a number of people that have started dipping their toe in the water and are at that point where it's a little bit harder than they thought it was going to be. And maybe, I talk through these 7 key steps, and maybe they've started at step 5 or step 4, and they're like, oh, hang on a minute, it's not feeling like it's built on a very secure foundation. We can still work on that. We can still go back and work on really embedding that foundation, and really working on how you speak to your ideal clients, how you build the support networks you need to. A lot of the people that I talk to, one of the reasons why they're struggling is because they don't know anyone else who've done this. And it's really hard if you don't have real life examples in your world that you can ask, well, how did you do this? What does it look like? This is feeling really, really hard. Is this normal hard? Or does this mean I'm doing something wrong? So that it can be, in both of those scenarios, it can be really helpful. But I would honestly suggest the earlier you can engage, the better.
And I always say there's no such thing as silly questions.
Oh, certainly not with me.
Right.
I'm always asking silly questions.
And it's just, usually there is something that, like, you don't know what you don't know sometimes. And I know asking questions might be hard, but you may be in this position right now, kind of considering this next leap. And just asking a few questions from someone who has been there and done that, I think, is invaluable. Even for me, last night, a gentleman got in touch with me. He's like, Rhonda, I'm really thinking about starting a magazine. Like, is it worthwhile? I'm really lost. I have so many questions. And I started to just gently guide him, because when you're starting out something like a new career, new path, there's so many questions that are unanswered, and you won't know until you take that leap and you start doing. But again, just having someone gently guide you through that process, like, this is what you can expect, get ready for that, or this is the kind of the steps in this order that you got to take in order to make this successful. And as you say, if there's no examples in your immediate circle, it's really hard. So for those who are watching this live right now, or even if you're watching this on replay and you wanted to ask some questions from Michelle, please put it in the chat. We want to see you engaging in the chat. Let us know if this is something you're currently considering of doing. Let us know in the chat. Michelle, what other advice would you want to offer? I mean, I've got some questions I want to ask you, but I just want to kind of volunteer for you to tell us what we don't know yet.
I think that the first thing I encourage all of my mentees to do is to get really clear on why you want to do it. Because I think, particularly if you've pushed it too far in corporate and you've really got kind of quite burnt out, just you can almost get to a point where anything is better than this, and that's not always true, right? I'm sure with most people there are aspects of your corporate life that you want to take with you, right? But there are usually some really key things that you want to move away from. And so I think it's so dangerous to do the grass is always greener, because frankly, every time you hop over that fence to that other patch of green grass, something else is going to look greener, something else is going to look greener. So I think being really clear about what you're running towards, not just what you're running away from, is really, really important. So that's where I get everyone to start. And I think it can be a really helpful way of kind of grounding where you go from here.
Yeah. I think it's so liberating as well for women to make that transition, because our needs are, perhaps our lives change a lot. Needs within our own family environment could change. And I've certainly seen a lot of people make that transition during COVID, because perhaps they realize that, this thing that they've been doing for so long, we're not bringing them as much fulfillment as they perhaps kind of, we get stuck in this mentality, like, this is what I know, and this is where I'm going to go, and this is where I'll be, without considering what life could look like outside of the realm of that. There's so many opportunities.
Yeah. And I think that, typically, I think most of us have thought of a corporate career as their safe place and, as a comfort zone. But, you don't have to look far, particularly at the moment, to know that corporate jobs, if they ever were, certainly aren't really that place of security that you imagine in your mind. In a funny way, maybe consulting is more secure, because you get to make more decisions there and you get more autonomy over making changes for yourself and making your job secure, where a lot is, to be honest, is out of your control when you're in a corporate role. And that was what, for me, was starting to feel more and more uncomfortable. And I really wanted to take some of that autonomy back.
Just be in control of, as I say, your own life, and how do you want to see your career, which is so powerful as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Michelle, you're one of our VIP speakers for the Women Through Our Summit, which I'm really excited about. And for those of you who don't know yet, this is our annual Women Empowerment event. Tell us a little bit more about your talk during the summit in March.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to be talking in March. So thank you so much for letting me be part of it. So really, what my talk is going to be about is really around sharing some of my stories and some of the highs and lows on the roller coaster as I've been through the last 10 years, but really empowering people to confidently make that leap, not make kind of a scared step, a tentative step, or the worst, kind of putting your toe out and then running back to corporate life, to really feel equipped with the tools to make a confident step out into a consulting career. And that's really what I want someone coming to the talk in March to come away feeling. I can do this. I know how to do this. I don't need to be scared of this. It is perfectly possible for someone like me, because that's what I hear a lot of. Oh, it isn't for someone like me. It's absolutely for someone like you. And I will give you all of the tools and the tricks and the guidebook to actually help you make that leap confidently.
Beautiful. I love that. Just that confidence step. And I think if you've been in the heights of your career and you've succeeded at a lot of things, I think that's the worst thing. Like, that's the worst fear of stepping into something new, not being good at it, not being the winner.
Yeah, exactly. And it is that fear of failure. Or what if they think I'm silly? What if they, what if they just think I'm doing something really, really stupid? And really, at the end of the day, does it even matter? So long as you're living your path and living, your truth.
Yeah, I have heard so many people say, well, people said to me, I'm crazy to give up my career, this well-paid job, and and just how well it turned out in the end.
Yeah,
And that's where you want to be headed, to follow your own path, but know that actually this is really going to work out, because I know it has worked out for many people all around the world, and it's possible for you too.
absolutely.
So, for those of you who haven't registered your spot for the Women Thrive Summit, I'd love to welcome you to do that now. So, head over to womenthrivesummit.com, register for your spot. Michelle is speaking on one of the days that is focused on career and career transitions. So, I believe it's Wednesday that we have. So, Wednesday, Tuesday. I think we've got it's on
I know.
Tuesday.
I get confused. Are we talking Australia time? We're talking. I think it's Wednesday for me.
All right, yes, exactly. So we're working across different time zones because we have women from all around the world. So we have women from Australia and Down Under. We've got women from Europe, UK, Canada, US, Caribbean. So women joining us from all around the world. And everybody have their own amazing and unique stories, experiences, skills. So many things that you can learn on this summit in this week-long event, from personal branding, marketing, visibility, career transition, career development, to also mindset, confidence, and inner healing. So lots of amazing topics to discover there. Go ahead and save your spot. It's happening March 20th to 24th. And we look forward to seeing you. This is one of our biggest annual events, so make sure you don't miss and grab your spot. Also, if you have enjoyed this live right now, do make sure you share it with someone who may be interested in this type of topic. And Michelle, how do people get in touch with you? So if they are thinking about doing this career transition, or even if they want a CFO support and help from you, how do people get in touch with you?
Sure. So you can find me in a few places. So you can find me on LinkedIn under Michelle Kvello. The beauty of having an unusually spelt name is that there's only one of me on there. So that's handy. Then there's also the website for Corporate to Consultant, which is corporate2consultant.com.au. Or you can find me on Instagram under Michelle Kvello. So look forward to connecting with you on one of those platforms.
Perfect. So I'm just making sure that you have these links in the chat. If you're not sure, please do ask, engage, ask your questions in the chat, because Michelle will be looking out for your questions and coming back to answer them after this live as well. Michelle, any last parting thoughts before we close out for today?
I tell you what I do want to share, actually, because I've got a great quote from one of the founders that we work with that I quote liberally, particularly in this scenario when we're talking about people transitioning from corporate to consultant, and that is, don't ask the advice of someone who hasn't been where you want to go. So if you take anything away, take that away. Not everybody's advice will be useful or valuable, because there will be so many people that don't believe in what you want to do, but you go seek the advice of the people that have done it before you. There are lots and lots and lots of us. So go seek us out.
Amazing. That's such a wonderful advice, especially in this scenario, because as we spoke earlier, there will be so many naysayers and doubters and people just literally saying, you're crazy to make that leap.
Yeah.
So that's not the advice that you should be following. There are people who've done it very, very successfully. I mean, look at Michelle. She's been doing this for 10 years, not only helping founders, businesses, and CEOs to grow and scale their businesses through financial planning, but also actually helping others transition in their career. So seek out experts and those who have done it before you. That's a great advice, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. So for those of you watching, thank you so much for your time today, for engaging. Make sure you follow Michelle and connect with her across the different platforms we just mentioned. And to make sure you share this, because I'm sure there are people right now seeking out for this information and encouragement to make that leap from corporate into their own consulting. Thank you all so much, and we look forward to seeing you on another live with other guests. Thanks for today. Thanks, Michelle.